ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयम् उदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकीनन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनच्छलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। पंचकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। नमः ओम विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण प्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते राधानाथ स्वामी नामिने। नमः ओम विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण प्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिन इति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषण्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे। कम करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्री चैतन्य ईश्वरम्। ओम तत्सत्। हरे कृष्ण। अनंतरा श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। So we are currently on the 7th chapter of the second canto, where Lord Brahma is narrating to Narad Muni the various Leela avatars of the Lord, and also various other categories of incarnations as well. He's describing the Manvantara avatars, he's describing the Shaktiavesh avatars, and is describing briefly each of them and describing their prominent qualities, their prominent activities in brief. Like what we mentioned in the last class, most of these incarnations have been described in a fair amount of detail across the Bhagavad. But here, Brahmaji is giving a brief synopsis of these transcendental pastimes of the Lord in these various very beautiful Leelas. And why he is narrating them here, he is trying to make a point to say that the Lord's Leela of Srishti, the Lord's Leela of Srishti is one aspect of his Leela. And that aspect of his Leela is carried out by his Purusha incarnations, the three types of Vishnu. Karanodakshay Vishnu, Garbhodakshay Vishnu, and Kshirodakashay Vishnu. We have been discussing this in great detail in the last few classes, so I'm not going to belabor that again. But to understand that there are three types of Vishnus who have three types of functions, but apart from the Srishti Leela, there are transcendental forms of the Lord who are eternally existing in the spiritual world who appear, avatara. They appear in this material world and display their beautiful pastimes. And it is these beautiful pastimes which create the subject matter for the devotees to relish and create the subject matter which attracts the heart of the innocent people, so that they may get attracted towards the Lord and gradually be able to detach themselves from the so-called illusory happiness of this material world. The beauty of the Lord's transcendental pastimes, his spiritual beauty, is that it has the capacity, the Lord's beauty, the Lord's qualities, the name, form, qualities and Leela of the Lord, being spiritual, have the potency of attracting the hearts and giving a kind of pleasure which makes all material happiness seem very pale and insignificant. So when one starts relishing the taste of the beautiful Leelas, spiritual Leelas of the Lord, if one becomes fortunate enough, many of us may not be fortunate enough, our heart may not be getting attracted, we may be getting attracted to material things more, and we may be wondering what is so attractive about the Lord's Leela. That is just a sign of our lack of spiritual advancement. That's a sign of our being conditioned. Great souls give a beautiful comparison for this. They say, Vidbhujan ye. Rishabh Dev says that if there is a hog, a pig, in front of a pig, I hope you are aware that pigs, they love to eat the vishtha of others. Vishtha means the excreta of others, and that is their favorite eatable. So normally what we think is the most abominable thing, for the hog, it is the tastiest thing. So in front of a hog, if there is some excreta of a human being lying around on the road, and if there is hot halwa made in fresh ghee nearby, the hog will neglect the halwa and go to the stools, because that is what he is tasting. He's so conditioned, he's so depraved and degraded in a material condition that he's unable to even see what is of value. And he tries to enjoy something which is abominable. So that is our condition. People who are like hogs, dogs, camels and asses, the Bhagavatam says. Shvada, Shva, Varaha, Ushtra. It's a very beautiful verse in the Bhagavad with respect to that. Says that they are unable to appreciate the value. So if we are feeling that we are not getting attracted, we should understand that it is actually a result of our own lack of spiritual evolution. It is because our own consciousness is now so covered, our iron heart is so covered with rust that it is not getting attracted to the magnet. So that is our ill fortune. But if we continue to hear the Leela of the Lord, Shravan Kirtanam, Hrudayantasto Yavadrani Vidhunoti Surutsutam, gradually through that process itself, one will be able to remove all impurities and the natural attraction for the Lord will be awakened. And when that attraction for the Lord becomes awakened, then very naturally one sees the halwa for what it is, and the other disgusting things for what they are. And one automatically loses taste for materialistic pursuits. The detachment of the devotee is not a suppression, artificial suppression of his desires. It is the natural consequence of a higher taste, a higher experience in connection with the name, form, qualities and pastimes of the Lord. That is the secret. So devotee doesn't have to artificially repress himself. He develops a higher taste. And the process for developing that higher taste is very simple. When we continue to hear and chant the glories of the Lord with faith in the association of devotees, in due course, that taste will be achieved. It's as simple as that. It doesn't require some far out yogic processes. It doesn't require very difficult austerities. big yajnas and pujas. No. Simply by hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord with faith in the association of devotees. Satam prasangam mama virya samvido bhavanti ritkarna rasayana katha tajjoshanadya pavarga vartmani shraddharatir bhaktir anukramishyati. In the first canto, there's a very beautiful verse that simply by this process of hearing and chanting, gradually all inauspicious things will go and one will develop gradually, stage by stage, deep faith, taste, and ultimately ecstatic feelings of devotion for the Lord. So let us have faith. Do not feel that, oh, really? Is there such attraction in the Lord's Leela? I am not feeling it. So when we feel that we have no attraction, we should actually become humbled. We should not doubt the glories of the Lord. We should feel humbled. Oh, the fact that I'm not becoming sufficiently attracted by the Lord's Leela is an indication that I am still in a spiritually diseased condition. I mentioned this in a few classes earlier, how Rup Goswami gives the beautiful example of a person who is suffering from jaundice. For him, even sugarcane juice tastes bitter. This comparison is explained in the Nectar of Instruction, Upadeshamrita. It says, it tastes bitter, but the problem is not in the sugarcane juice. It is not that there is bitterness in the juice. The bitterness is in the tongue. The bitterness is in the tongue, and because of that, just give me 1 minute. Sorry, somebody here calling on me. So it is simply because of the disease in the tongue that which is supposed to be sweet tastes bitter. Now I'm mentioning this point again and again so that one actually understands this. This is very important. And that is why the turning point in the life of the jiva, the sadhaka, is when he starts relishing and experiencing that happiness in hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord. When that starts happening, one should understand that one has received wonderful blessings, which is actually going to change the course of the journey of the life of the sadhaka. So please watch out for that. And if that is not happening after much endeavor, that means there is something we are not doing right. Then one should take guidance from one's spiritual teachers as to what is the reason that one is not getting that attraction, even after apparently trying hard enough. So we're going to continue this journey of the brief description of the various incarnations of the Lord. If I'm not wrong, we did discuss about the Gajendra Moksha pastime. Am I correct? We did briefly stop at that point, if I remember correctly, where the Lord in the form of Hari appeared to deliver this elephant, Gajendra, whose leg was captured by a huge crocodile. And this Gajendra, even though in this life as an elephant, he was actually cursed. He was actually a great devoted king in his past life, but because of a mistake, he came into that particular situation. But his devotional inclination automatically arose in his heart at the right time, and he prayed very, very beautifully to the Lord. He took a beautiful lotus from the lake and offered it to the Lord with a very beautiful prayer. That, oh Lord, he didn't take the Lord's name, but he described him that you are the supreme enjoyer. And just by chanting your holy names and remembering you, all inauspiciousness goes away. You are the only one worth glorifying. And as he was glorifying like this, the Lord appeared. So the Lord appeared at that particular time as Hari took his Sudarshan Chakra and he annihilated the crocodile. Incidentally, even the crocodile was a cursed Gandharva, if I'm not wrong. So there is a story behind the story of each of these living entities. Both were delivered, the crocodile by being killed and Gajendra by being saved. You see how the Lord is so kind. And that is why the Lord is, no matter how one gets in contact with the Lord, one is always benefited. Even the demons are benefited. Because the Lord is so kind that even when he punishes, he gives blessings. So the crocodile was delivered and so was Gajendra. Of course, while the Asuras also get a special blessing when the Lord kills them, but nonetheless, our special appreciation is for the devotees. Because if even the demons get liberation, then can we imagine what actually the devotees of the Lord must be getting? Isn't it? They will get something much, much, much higher. And what is that much, much higher thing? That much, much higher thing is personal association of the Lord, a loving relationship with the Lord, which is far, far above and beyond liberation. There's also the beautiful Leela of Bali Maharaj and Vamanadev. If I'm not wrong, I think I remember we briefly mentioned about this as well. Yes. Yeah. So I'm not going to go into that. It's a very, very beautiful Leela of how Bali Maharaj showed his devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead by being willing to sacrifice everything that he had worked so hard all his life to acquire. In a moment, he was willing to give up everything, even when his guru, Shukracharya, the guru of the demons, forbade him to do so. Knowing that Vamana was the Supreme Lord, he was willing to give up everything just to please the Lord. See, this is that quality which actually attracts the Lord's attention. Ultimately, the symptom of love is the willingness to sacrifice. Love is not just about jumping and dancing and embracing and kissing. That even actors and actresses can do. Maybe better than all of us. What is actually the symptom of love? The symptom of love is the willingness to sacrifice one's own interest for the sake of the beloved. Here he was willing to sacrifice everything, Bali Maharaj, just to please the Lord. And the Lord was so pleased by that sacrificing, humble attitude of Bali Maharaj, the unpretentious attitude of Bali Maharaj. One should always remember, when one sacrifices for the Lord, one is never the loser. When one sacrifices in material situations, one may be a loser. But when one sacrifices for the Lord always rewards many times over. Because when the Lord is pleased, his blessings have no limit. So the Lord actually blessed him with his personal association in the Sutal Lok. It practically became like a Vaikuntha planet, because the Lord was residing, the Lord is residing on Sutala Loka even now. And he has become the doorkeeper of Bali Maharaj out of his intense affection. So can you imagine the good fortune? He thought he was sacrificing everything, but in return for sacrificing something material and temporary, in return he got the Lord himself. as a return gift. So that is the special mercy of the Lord. So one should never hesitate to surrender and serve the Lord, because the Lord, even though the devotee is not expecting a reward, it is the Lord's nature that he is extremely affectionate, and he will reciprocate many times over. So that was the beautiful pastime, and that is also the pastime where the Lord actually places his lotus feet on the head of Bali Maharaj, the same lotus feet from which Ganga Devi emanates. It was very beautiful. Then Brahmaji continues to describe other incarnations. He starts talking about the Hamsa avatar, a swan form of the Lord, which actually gave the knowledge of pure devotional service to Narada Muni at one point in time. The knowledge of bhakti is actually a very great secret. Raja Vidya Rajaguhyam Pavitramidam Uttamam. Krishna says in the 9th chapter, this is very, very secret. Because to understand the knowledge of bhakti is not so easy. Actually, sometimes those who do not have the heart of a devotee are unable to appreciate bhakti. It seems mundane to them, it seems sentimental to them. They are unable to appreciate how a self-sacrificing nature can actually lead to such a divine, intense spiritual experience, which is even higher than the stage of being free from all material miseries. So some of these points are very difficult for the Gyanis and the Karmis to appreciate. That is why Krishna has repeatedly said that the nature of me and my devotion can be only understood by the devotees. Even in the Bhagavad Gita, many times. If you want to understand me as I am, you must become a devotee. Bhaktya tu ananyaya shakya aham evam vido Arjuna. You can understand me as I am only through Ananya Bhakti, not through any other process. So Hamsavatar gave that full mercy to Narad Muni and explained. The Lord also appears in the form of many Manvantara avatars. These Manvantara avatars of the Lord, like what we discussed in every day of Brahma, there are 14 Manus, and these Manus, they are like super rulers in the universe. And they especially make sure that proper rule of law is managed. So, the Manvantaras, the Manvantara incarnations actually establish, they destroy the miscreants and establish the rule of law. Then the Lord also appeared in this beautiful incarnation of Dhanvantari. Yes, I think many of you may have seen Dhanvantari. You can see him carrying a Amrita Kalasha. He arises from the ocean of milk, and he is the one who gave the Amrita to the Devatas. Some people remember Mohini as the one who distributed the Amrita. But yes, Mohini Devi is Lord Vishnu's incarnation, who came and took away the Amrit Patra from the demons, and then she deluded the demons and gave it to the Devatas. But the Amrit Kalasha came out from the ocean of milk in the hands of Dhanvantari, who's also an incarnation of the Lord. And he is that incarnation of the Lord from whom the knowledge of medicine came into this world. Dhanvantari is the Deva Vaidya. He is the chief doctor of the Swargaloka. And he's also an incarnation of the Lord. Especially those who study Ayurveda, they worship Lord Dhanvantari and seek his blessings both for knowledge and also for curing of the diseases. In fact, they say that all the herbs that they prepare, many authentic Ayurvedic doctors, they will actually offer these herbs first to Dhanvantari and then use the prasad, because they know that ultimate curer of diseases is the potency of the Lord, not just a material chemical. Then the Lord also appeared in this very popular and fierce personality of Parshuram. Some people like personalities like Parshuram. Yes, for example, it depends. Certain kinds of personalities appeal to certain kinds of people, and Krishna assumes all kinds of personalities to attract all kinds of people. In the late 70s and 80s in India, there's a very famous actor who is still very famous. His name is Amitabh Bachchan. So why was he famous? He was famous as the angry young man. He was famous because he was always angry. And he would do Herculean tasks when he would become angry. And common people find it very exciting. Wow, he has no tolerance for anything, no nonsense, go-getter, do it. They find it very exciting. Parshuram was the very epitome of angry young man. He was not just angry in a three-hour movie. He was angry for eons. 21 times he decimated the Kshatriyas just with his chopper, his parashu, which was given to him by Lord Shiva. 21 times. Why? It's not that he disliked Kshatriyas as such. He did that because the Kshatriyas had forgotten what was their actual duty. Kshatriya means Kshatratrayate, those who are supposed to protect Vedic culture, protect people from getting hurt. But when the Kshatriyas, the protectors themselves become the oppressors, society becomes destroyed. And that is one of the key characteristics of Kali Yuga, that unqualified people become rulers. So this, in a previous age, when Parshuram saw that this is how deterioration was happening, he took it upon himself with his parashu to set things in order. So even though born in a Brahmana family, he took up, seeing that the Kshatriyas, the protectors themselves had become the oppressors, he took it upon himself to rectify the situation, considering it an emergency. And in that way, he actually used his parshu. It is said he was so fast and so good with the parshu that when he would alone go and challenge armies of thousands and thousands of Kshatriya warriors. And it is said he would move his chopper at such a speed. Those who are impressed by Bruce Lee movies or whatever else movies, Parshuram is million times faster. The Lord is the best of everything. He's the best of the angry men. He's the fastest, far faster than any of the martial artists can do. It is said when he would move his chopper, practically nobody could see anything. All they could see is just heads, arms, legs flying around, being chopped by his parshu. That's how fast he was. Like a raging wind, he would just pass through an army in no time, chopping them to pieces. And within a few minutes, all that would be left on the battlefield would be heads, arms, legs, and a trunk. So that was Parshuram. Then the beautiful incarnation of Lord Sri Ramachandra is described. Very sweet. Some of the prominent incarnations, actually Brahmaji spends a few verses describing. So when he describes the beautiful incarnation of Ram, Maryada Purushottam, Ram actually is such a beautiful manifestation of the Lord. He's one of the most prominent manifestations, like what we described. While Krishna is the original Purna Purushottam, Lord Ram is almost a complete manifestation of the Lord. And so is Lord Narasimha. These are very, very prominent manifestations of the Lord. They are not amshas. They are actually kalas who are almost complete. So Maryada Purushottam Ram performed such beautiful pastimes and some very beautiful, extraordinary episodes from the life of Ramchandra are mentioned in verses 23 onwards by Lord Brahma. He explains how Lord Ram appeared in the Ikshvaku Vamsha. That he married Sita Devi. And who's this Sita Devi? Sita Devi is none other than his internal potency. The Lord's internal potency takes the form of Lakshmi, takes the form of Sita, takes the form of Radha. And the Lord's external potency, his Maya Shakti, takes the form of Durga Devi, Parvati Devi, and so on. The Lord appeared and married Sita Devi. And then how to keep the words of his father, Maharaj Dashrath? He spent 14 years in the forest, accompanied by his chaste wife Sita and his younger brother Lakshman. And how he chastised this 10-headed demon, Ravana, who performed a very great offense to Lord Ram. And even though he was so extraordinarily powerful and practically protected by Lord Shiva because of his severe offense, Ravana was destroyed. That was the kind of, even Lord Ram, even though he's so gentle, even though he's so forgiving, when he sees that all logic, reason, and good appeal fails to bring good sense to a demoniac person, he responds with the right Kshatriya spirit. He showed that treatment to Ravan, and even before he showed that to Ravan, he showed that to the ocean when he came to Kanyakumari, to the southern tip. When the ocean refused to give way, Lord Ram beseeched first. But when the ocean refused, the Lord looked at the ocean with such angry eyes that with his anger, the ocean was burning. Burning means started boiling. And the Lord of the ocean appeared and begged forgiveness from Ramchandra, from Lord Ram, and then he suggested to him to build a bridge. So that idea actually came from there. And eventually the Lord crossed over through this Setu Bandha, went the other side and fought with Ravan. That Ravan who was so powerful, it is said at one time, Indra, seated on his elephant carrier Airavat, was fighting with Ravan. And this Airavat is so powerful. He has so many trunks, it is said. And when he hit his trunk very hard on the chest of Ravan, apparently the trunk of Airavat broke into pieces. That's how powerful Ravan was. And the effulgent pieces of the trunk of Airavat were scattered in all directions. And Ravan was laughing and thinking, oh, I'm so powerful. Who can kill me? And that powerful Ravan was destroyed simply by the tinkling sound of the bow of Sri Ram. That is a beautiful description given in the Bhagavad. Then the Bhagavad, in this chapter, Lord Brahma starts describing the Purna Purushottam manifestation of the Lord, the original personality of Godhead, Krishna himself. Of course, all incarnations of the Lord are extraordinary, but Krishna is the most extraordinary because he is the complete manifestation. Most extraordinary in beauty, most extraordinary in the activities that he performs, most extraordinary in the compassion that he displays, most extraordinary in the kinds of leelas that he performs. So beautiful. So quite a few verses Brahmaji devotes to describing the beautiful pastimes of the Lord who appeared in his original form, accompanied by his plenary expansion, his first expansion, Lord Balaram. And one of the first things he mentions, of course, he says that Krishna and Balaram came to reduce the burden on the earth. But he mentions a very interesting point about the Lord, even before he goes into all other things. Brahmaji says, the Lord comes in his original form And he describes one very specific characteristic. He says he comes with very beautiful black hair. Can you imagine the Bhagavatam? You would think, oh, he's going to describe so many things. What he's describing is the black hair of Krishna is so beautiful that he's especially mentioning Brahmaji, that the form of Krishna and Balram, they have such beautiful black hair. There's something very interesting, because obviously the Lord's hair is not like our hair. In fact, our hair is waste. It's actually dead matter. It is a waste substance. In fact, after we cut hair, we have to take bath. Because once the hair is detached from the body, it is considered very unclean. But the Lord's form, his body, his hair, everything is spiritual in nature. And the Lord's hair, if you remember, in one of the earlier verses, the Lord's beautiful form has been described as his black hair, which is oiled. I don't know whether you recollect. I had mentioned this point very specifically. The Bhagavatam mentions beautiful black shining oiled hair. So Krishna's hair is also so attractive, so beautiful. And the beautiful thing about his hair is just like a young boy's hair. Even though the Lord, from an external perspective, had grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and in his from material perspective, he was already on the planet for 100 over years. It is said his hair was as fresh like a young boy of 16 years old. No gray hair, no dry hair, no need for dyeing the hair or expensive shampoos, nothing. Very beautiful, natural hair. And Krishna's hair, it is said especially, and many great souls have described Krishna's hair. It is so beautiful, especially the way it curls down from his hair coming down on his shoulders. It is considered very beautiful. It is very, very, very charming to see. Probably that is from where all the other heroes get these ideas of starting growing long hair and showing off. Of course, that is not even a billionth or a trillionth part of the beauty of the Lord's hair. And the Lord, when Krishna appears, he's not only extraordinarily beautiful, but he's performing very, very extraordinary activities. Ati Martyani, the Bhagavatam says. Ati Martyani means something which no mortal person can do. Aprameya, something which is impossible for anybody else to compare or match. That is the kind of activities. The activities of Krishna establish that Krishna is not a human being. He must be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Nobody else can do. And whoever doubted, even when Lord Brahma doubted, his pride was crushed. When Indra doubted, his pride was crushed. The Lord performed various activities very, very extraordinarily. And even then, no one is able to actually estimate how great he is. Even the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna, whatever greatness of mine I have described to you, Arjuna, is just a tiny spark of my glories. Nobody can estimate my glories fully. The Lord says he himself is unable to fathom his glories fully. So what to speak of ordinary living entities like us? If we are standing in front of a vast ocean, can we even imagine what the ocean is? We cannot. If we think we are imagining, even that imagination is inadequate. We cannot imagine the size of the ocean. We are just so small in front of the ocean. Forget the ocean. Do you know how small the planet is in front of the universe? So insignificant. And do you know how insignificant the universe is as a part of the entire material manifestation? And that unlimited universes are coming out from one breath of Lord Mahavishnu. And this Mahavishnu is an expansion of the expansion of the expansion of the expansion of the expansion of Krishna. Who can fathom the glories and potencies of Krishna? It is impossible. But through these pastimes, we get some hint based on what we can appreciate and relate to. Of course, the Lord's glories and his power is far, far extraordinary and far, far higher than what we can actually conceive. And some beautiful leelas of the Lord are mentioned. When he was very young, when he was on the lap of his mother, just probably a few days after his birth, he killed this powerful witch, Putana. He sucked out of her life hair. And at the same time, like what we discussed, he not only killed her, but he actually purified her. Because she also had a little bit of motherly affection for Krishna. So Krishna was very kind. Krishna always looks for the positive side, and he delivered Putana. When he was 3 months old, the Lord was placed under a cart and he kicked the cart gently. As soon as he touched his tiny lotus feet, the cart flew into the air and cracked it and exploded into many pieces. Then, in the Damodar Leela, he uprooted these huge Yamalarjun trees, which almost seemed like touching the sky. Very extraordinary. The Lord did not become powerful by going to a gym or by doing tapasya. He was as powerful when he was newborn as he was when he was in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. He did not acquire his powers. He is eternally powerful, independent of what kind of Leela he is managing. He chastises Kaliya when Kaliya poisons the Yamuna. Very, very beautiful Leela. He jumps and he dances on the hoods. He dances so beautifully that even Lord Shiva, who's Nataraj, is amazed. Why? One thing is, it is already very difficult to dance well. Yes, how many of us can dance well? I can't. I'm very bad at dancing. Some of us can dance, but amongst those who are dancers, who can match the dancing of Lord Shiva? But you know what was extraordinary about Brindavana Natabara? This Krishna, when he was dancing on the hoods of Kaliya. He was dancing elegantly on the hoods of Kaliya, not on a fixed stage. He was jumping from hood to hood as the hoods were in motion, trying to bite him. Playfully, Krishna was jumping and dancing from hood to hood without any effort, as if he was just having some play, and he was dancing perfectly gracefully. So beautiful, so extraordinary. Who can do that? A snake with many hoods who's continuously trying to bite Krishna. Krishna is gracefully jumping from hood to hood and performing a beautiful dance and having fun. This is possible only for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The same night, it is said, there was a huge fire in Vrindavan, where the residents of Vrindavan, there was a great fear that they may be consumed by the fire. At that time, the Lord told all the Vrindavan Vasis, please close your eyes. And then Krishna swallowed the fire. And he saved the lives of the residents of Braj. Then even as a young boy, he performed his beautiful Leelas, the Damodar Leela, where Mother Yashoda was trying to tie him. But no matter how much rope she had, it was always 2 fingers short. Very extraordinary. The Lord, even though from an external perspective, his waist appears so small, even though the waist is apparently so small, it is unlimited. Namastestu dhamne sfurat dipti dhamne tvadiyo dharayata vishwasya dhamne. Your udar, your belly seems only this size, but it is the residence of the whole world. That is why it is unlimited. This Leela showed how the Lord is extraordinary. He is not a living entity like us. And this same Lord, when he opened his mouth, when Mother Yashoda asked him to open his mouth, she saw the unlimited universes in the mouth of Krishna and she was bewildered. But Krishna is so kind. He covers up this awe and reverence in the mind of his mother and his other very dear associates. And she started thinking, no, this is not because of Krishna. This is Lord Narayan doing something to protect my child. So that is how she would think. Then so many other Leelas. At one time, Nanda Maharaj was captured by Varun Dev. Varun Dev went and took bath in the Yamuna very late. Instead of morning, it was still late night, apparently. I'm just mentioning this Leela in very brief. There are a lot of details which I'll not go into. All these Leelas are described, either they're described in the Bhagavad or they're described in the Krishna book in great detail. The Krishna book is actually a detailed description of the 10th canto of Bhagavad itself. So you can read that. All these pastimes are mentioned. That how Varuna Dev and the associates of Varuna captured Nanda Maharaj because he was bathing at an inauspicious, incorrect time. But actually the real reason for them capturing him was, on the pretext of capturing him, they wanted Krishna to come to Varuna Lok to get his darshan. So that was a very beautiful pastime like that. And many other pastimes where Krishna saves the cowherd boys who were captured by the son of the Maya Danav, who had hid all of these gopas in the caves of mountains. Krishna was so kind to these gopas and the gopis, the residents of Vrindavan, who were actually so simple. They were so simple, they would work hard during the day, and they would be so tired by working so hard throughout the day. They would have a very nice, peaceful sleep at night. But there was one qualification. Throughout their day and night, they were always absorbed in thinking of Krishna and working for Krishna's pleasure. That was a quality which even the greatest of the Ashtanga yogis did not have. And that made them so dear to Krishna that Krishna awarded all of them, these apparently simple people, he granted all of them eternal residence in Goloka Vrindavan. In fact, in one particular Leela, Krishna brings them to a particular point and shows them, what is your future? They all ask him, what is our future? So Krishna shows them their future in a vision to all the residents of Vrindavan. And that vision, they see all of them are in the spiritual world with Krishna. And when they see the spiritual world, Nanda and all the other cowherd boys and the gopas and the gopis, they see, oh, this Vrindavan looks, this spiritual world looks so much like our Vrindavan. Oh, and I am there, all these others are there, everybody's there. Hey, why this looks exactly same? So Krishna is trying to tell them that you are already in the spiritual world and I am the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You have just descended here to participate in these beautiful pastimes. So Krishna gave them their understanding. Of course, they are covered by the Lord's Yogamaya potency because the Lord doesn't want to affect their pure love with feelings of awe and reverence. Then there are other beautiful Leelas like the Govardhan Leela, which is so sweet and beautiful, where Krishna crushed the pride of Indra, who was continuously pouring heavy rains for 7 days. And like a small child holds a mushroom, Krishna held the Govardhan hill with his little finger of one hand and he crushed the pride of Indra. And then there are beautiful other Leelas like the Rasa Leela, which are so sweet. And then the killing of the Shankachuda demon. When Shankachuda kidnapped the gopis, the Lord punished him by killing him. So all these beautiful pastimes of the Lord, all of these are describing the Lord's activities as Ati Martyani, Guda Kapata Manusha. Even though the Lord is coming in a human-like form, the Lord is always fully transcendental and spiritual. His body is spiritual. It is his original Satchidananda form. It is not a material form. It is not a body made of material elements. The Lord, by his own wish, covers his spiritual form. Yoga Maya Samavritah Lokoyam Nabhijanati Mamebhya Paramabhya. People are not able to understand. Without devotion, Krishna does not reveal himself to anybody, even when the Lord appears on this planet. The Lord reserves the right to reveal his identity and his real qualities, beauty, glories to those who do not have the right faith and attitude towards the Lord. So the Lord performs many of these leelas, very beautiful. And in these leelas, so many demoniac personalities, they fought with the Lord, or they were killed by the Lord. So many: Pralambasur, Dhenukasur, Bakasur, Keshi, Aristasur, Chanur, Mushtik, the Kuvalayapid elephant. So many: Kamsa, Kalayavan, Narkasur, Poundrak. Also great warriors like Shalva, the Dvivida monkey, Balwala, Dantavakra, Shambhara, Vidurad, Rukmi. Of course, Rukmi was not killed, but he was crushed. And so many other warriors. The beauty in all these pastimes is, the Bhagavad mentions, all those who were crushed by the Lord were actually blessed by the Lord. If they had any little devotion or appreciation for the Lord and they were killed because of certain circumstances, they went to Vaikuntha. But if they did not have that affection, even the least that they would be offered would be liberation in the impersonal Brahmajyoti. That is the greatness of the Lord. That impersonal liberation, which is difficult even for great yogis to attain, it takes many, many lifetimes. Some of these demons got by being killed by the Lord. So that is how the Lord is always, no matter how one comes in contact with the Lord, it is always beneficial. So I will stop here. We are at verse 35. And there are a few other incarnations which are mentioned, like Vyasadeva, Buddha, but I will not go into that now. We can continue that from the next chapter onwards. So the key point is, just to summarize, the key point in all these discussions is, all these beautiful incarnations of the Lord, these beautiful leelas are performed by the Lord to charm our heart. So one should continue to hear and chant these glories, these beautiful leelas in the association of devotees, read Bhagavad, discuss Bhagavad, chant the holy names, and that is the fastest and the easiest way to reawaken our love for the Lord. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Kabunoy Shravan Adi Shuddha Chitte Karayoday. This devotion to Krishna, this bhakti for Krishna is not something which is going to come from outside. It is there in our heart. But right now it is dormant. It has to be awakened. And how do you awaken? Just like within wood there is fire. But does the wood catch fire by itself? No. There is fire within the wood, but the fire in the wood has to be activated by a fire from outside. Then the wood catches fire, and the fire within the wood comes out and becomes fire, isn't it? So, Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Kabuna, it is not to be coming from somewhere outside. It is there. It is in a sleeping state. But when one comes in contact with the fire of devotion through hearing and chanting in the association of devotees, that fire in our heart gets activated. Shravan Adi. Adi means other processes. Shravan, Kirtan, Smaran. And the 9 processes. When we follow Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakhyam, Atmani Vedanam. This is a verse from the Bhagavad. This is where Prahlad Maharaj is telling his father that this is the topmost education. Topmost education doesn't say physics, chemistry, maths, geography, history, English. He doesn't say that. Or engineering, medicine. He says that ultimate conclusion of all knowledge is coming to the point of understanding that ultimately what is it that will give me the highest benefit. Not English, not maths, not physics, not engineering, not chemistry or medicine or whatever. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Pada Sevanam. Because when one connects to the source of all good fortune through these 9 processes, all good fortune comes independent of whether one has any other skills or knowledge. That is the beauty. So, Shravan Adi Shuddha Chitte Kare Uday. When one hears and chants, when one follows these limbs of bhakti, that bhakti which is within our heart becomes manifest. So please keep up this process of hearing and chanting, and as we progress, our eagerness to hear and chant the glories of the Lord will continuously increase, and that is how we can measure our own progress. If we are seeing we are more eager to speak about Krishna, we are more eager to hear about Krishna, that means we are progressing. That means the dirt is going away from the heart. If over time we are feeling, oh, I am hearing 1 hour every week, I think 15 minutes is enough. Then we should understand that the problem is not with the medicine, the problem is with us. Somehow we are not following the process in a proper way. That is why the right result is not coming. And that is why it is very important to properly associate with devotees, not commit offenses. And there are many other technicalities also. How to properly hear with faith, hear with submission, hear with a service mentality. Don't criticize. Don't do ninda. When one is critical, one is offensive, one is judgmental of devotees and even of other living entities, then that love for the Lord doesn't manifest in one's heart. So there are these various principles why sometimes our progress is slow, or sometimes we even lose the taste that we have. So one should understand all these points are given in the Bhagavad and the Gita. This whole science is described. So when we learn this in the association of devotees and make proper efforts to practice based on the knowledge given in our Guru Parampara, then one can make rapid and sure progress in the path of devotion. Okay. So with that, I will end the class for today. And in the next class, we will aim to complete this chapter. And I'll just open the floor if there are any question and answers for today. Thank you. Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Good. You're all stunned and absorbed. Santanam Prabhu, you are trying to say something? You're on mute, so I can't hear you.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. When you are referring to Bali Maharaja, you are saying like he was ready to sacrifice everything, even though when his teacher was saying, but why he did offense to Indra and his mother? Indra, what was the reason what was the reason he got the punishment or the blessings from the Vamana Dev Prabhuji?
Phalena parichiyate. One can understand whether something was good or bad based on the final result that it produces. Externally, it seemed that Vamana is helping Indra. Yes. Because the story behind the story is that Bali Maharaj defeated Indra and took over the heavenly kingdoms, correct? And Vamana was the younger brother of Indra. He's the youngest of the Adityas. Yes? That is why he's also known as Upendra. Upendra means the younger brother of Indra. So externally, Vamana was coming to take the side of Indra. See, this is the beauty. Indra is also devotee. Bali is also devotee. Yes? Correct? Krishna is very smart. Krishna is going, apparently externally is taking the side of one devotee against another devotee. But what did Krishna do? In the end, he gave both devotees what they actually wanted and what they actually deserved. To both, right? To Indra, he gave back his kingdom because that's what he wanted. To Bali Maharaj, he gave himself. Yes. So who actually won and who lost? You understand? Yeah. So Bali Maharaj got a much greater gift because he was detached. Indra was attached to his kingdom. Bali was not attached. Even though initially to some extent he was attached in the sense that he wanted to acquire that kingdom, after he acquired it, and he acquired it in a righteous way, because as a Kshatriya, you can challenge another king and defeat him and take over his kingdom. There is nothing sinful about it. That is the proper behavior for a Kshatriya. So he had acquired it in an appropriate way. But when Krishna tested him, he was willing to give up all of that. Yes, whenever Indra is in trouble, he rushes to Krishna and Vishnu and says, please help me get my kingdom back. Here Bali had acquired all his kingdom, and Krishna went to him and said, in the pretext of begging, Krishna took away everything, but he did not protest. Instead, he not only offered all the kingdom, he offered his own head. He said, let me please you. That is what Krishna wants, right? Ultimately, Sharanagati, that is Sharanagati, isn't it? And when a devotee comes to the point of that Sharanagati, that is when Krishna gives himself to the devotee. Yes, up to that point, Krishna will give other things. You want money, okay, you want job, you want husband, you want wife, you want children, you want whatever, he will give. To his devotees he may give. Like to Indra also he has given kingdom. So many times he has helped Indra to kill his enemies, so many ways. But when does Krishna give himself? Krishna gives himself to the bhakta when he sees that the bhakta wants him more than any other thing. That the bhakta is willing to make Krishna the highest priority in his life. And anything that comes between him and Krishna, he is willing to sacrifice. That is extremely pleasing to Krishna. Yes. So the story behind the story is, some people celebrate, oh, Indra won and Bali got defeated. But we celebrate that Bali achieved Krishna's greatest glory. Of course, Indra also won, but his winning was a material winning. The spiritual winning was that of Bali Maharaj. And we glorify that. And Bhagavatam glorifies Bali Maharaj's personality there in that pastime. It's not about Indra's victory. It's about Bali Maharaj's victory in the eyes of Vamana. Because he received the real blessing of the Lord, which is that of pure devotional service. Okay. Did I answer your question? So
yes, thank you, Prabhuji. Thanks.
Yeah, so what meets the eye may not be the full truth. That is why one needs the explanation of the acharyas and the great souls. Then one can understand what is actually the story behind the story. Not every blessing of the Lord is necessarily the topmost blessing, and not every punishment of the Lord is necessarily a punishment. One needs a more deeper analysis to see how sometimes hidden within a punishment may be a great blessing. And for that blessing to manifest in all circumstances, one will always see that the devotee actually takes humble shelter, is willing to be crushed, is willing to be take a position of Sharanagati, willing to accept defeat to please the Lord and his devotees. And that pleases Krishna greatly. That is the secret of achieving the real mercy of Krishna. Okay, any other point? Or anybody wants to add or say anything? Okay, so if there's nothing else, thank you all very much. I will continue on Wednesday, Bhagavad Gita chapter 1. Okay, thank you all. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.